evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the broadcast. Welcome to the MCJ Report. Number 11, that's right. We keep going and going and going, and we never stop. I want to welcome everyone to the broadcast this evening, and here's some good news. The comments is working, that's right. Some of you remember on last show on Monday. I'll move the mic a bit closer. I think this should help. I couldn't read any comments, so I could see that a whole bunch of you were tuned in. But I couldn't read anyone's comments. So now I can. It seems to be working. I can see Tony, Karen, Judy, for starters, PJ, Rex, Vanessa. How are we, guys? I'm glad to see you here. We're live on a few different platforms. That's right. So we're live on the Morgan C. Jonas Facebook page. We're live on YouTube. And we're also live on Reignite Democracy Australia. So I'd like to welcome everyone. So if you are tuned in, go ahead and share the broadcast. We've got some interesting things to talk about. As we always do, there's never any shortage, is there, in this day and age? We've got maniacs like Greg Hunt running around trying to coerce everybody into taking this new vaccine while simultaneously admitting that this is a clinical trial. Now, these are not my words, these are his. We're going to have a little bit of a talk about that on tonight's show. And of course, you know that we are going to Greg Hunt's office. That's right, we are going to his territory in the Flinders electorate this Saturday, 2 p.m, and we're going to tell this man exactly what we think of him. I'll tell you straight up, Greg Hunt has violated his duty of care to the Australian public. This man is the health minister, yet I argue he's not putting our interests first. He's not truly acting in the best interests of our public health, rather whatever it is that best benefits his career, and I would also say the corporate interests of the pharmaceuticals. So I think more and more people are actually now able to see through this man. We see what he's doing, we reject it. And this is really what the We Are Coming movement is about. That's right, getting these people out of office one way or another, voting them out and getting good people in. Who here is keen to be involved in that? This is the only way anything's going to change. The only way that we're going to get our country back on track is to remove these traitors from Parliament and to vote good people in that love this country. And everyone can play a role in it. That's the great thing. It could be a small role from doing letterbox drops, handing out information in a certain electorate on an election. Or who knows, maybe you would like to be a candidate yourself. Maybe you want to put your hand up and say, hey, I have what it takes to take this person out. Anyway, put that in the comments. How do you see yourself being involved in this tremendous movement? Anyway, so I'm going to get to the news. We're going to get through it. I just wanted to address something before I started speaking. Now, some of you are probably aware of this, that there was a poster put out just yesterday for a supposed event on Friday. Now, what actually happened was my name was used on the poster along with Monica and along with Serene. Now, I can say that I never consented to having my name put on this poster. I know that Monica, she never consented to having her name put on either, and the same story as well with Serene. So anyone that saw that poster that had Ayers Rock in the background, please ignore it, okay? This is just completely wrong. This is so wrong. You don't go putting people's names on posters that have not consented. This is just... It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it before. I saw it circulating. I saw my name. I saw Monica's. I said, hey, what the hell is going on here? And I don't know. I don't know what it's about. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't trust it. We're going on Saturday at 2 p.m. That's what I know. So that I just wanted to address that right here, right now. Is that fair enough? Just wanted to address that first. Anyway. Let's get to it. Okay. So as I said, 2 p.m. We're heading down there. The information's on my Facebook. It's on the Reignite Democracy Telegram group. It's also on the Morgan C. Jonas Telegram page. So you've got the information there. Once again, violated by Pfizer. We have to keep calling it out. We must call it for what it is. There's no good reason that Greg Hunt and Scott Morrison can demand you to trust this organization Pfizer, that for year in, year out has committed some of the most terrible, unethical practices that has resulted in the destruction of countless amounts of lives. I made a 50-minute presentation detailing Pfizer's corporate rap sheet. If you haven't seen it, it's on Rumble. Go and check it out on rumble.com. My username is Morgan C. Jonas. It's back on YouTube. I know that the first link got taken down, but it's back on YouTube. So share it with your friends and family, anyone on the fence. This is simply a matter of public information. So what you'll see in this report that I called Violated, I think appropriately called Violated, is it is nothing more than a collection of publicly available information. So this is not information that is hidden from the public. So everything said in the report, and I always make sure of this, you can verify it, you can cross-reference it, and you can be sure that I'm doing everything to not mislead anybody. Rather, I simply want you, the Australian consumer, to make an informed choice. Because you see, if it was up to Greg Hunt, Scott Morrison, they have the attitude, well, shut your mouth, stick this drug in your arm, don't ask any questions. And people that do ask questions are ridiculed. They call us conspiracy theorists. They accuse us of being, quote, dangerous. They accuse us of spreading disinformation, whereas they are the ones who expect us to roll over and take it. But guess what? We're not going to take it, and you are going to play a big role in pushing back against this. That's right. I'm talking to you watching this broadcast right now. Okay, let's see. Now, I'm sure that everybody knows the news by now. The great Australian Craig Kelly, he made the right decision. He left the Liberal Party. Fantastic. The Liberal Party never deserved Craig Kelly. Can we all agree with that? Craig Kelly is committed to this country. He's committed to the truth. He is in pursuit of the truth, as demonstrated by his online activity, demonstrated by the countless amounts of studies that he posts, that he has posted for so long regarding alternative COVID remedies. You know, I'll never forget last year, Craig Kelly made a post, and this was around the time when many of us here in Melbourne were being arrested and treated very unfairly by the police. Craig Kelly, he made a post at like 2 or 3 a.m. and it went to the effect of, I can't sleep knowing the degree to which my fellow Australians are suffering in Victoria. And I said to myself, this man has a heart of gold. How many politicians out there are laying in bed, awake at 3 a.m. because they're concerned about people in a different state? He was. This man, he's a man of the people. We need to do everything in our power to support him. And I'm so proud of Craig Kelly. And shame on you, Scott Morrison, for pulling this man, this truth seeker, into your office to supposedly pull him in line. Well, guess what, Scott Morrison? You don't control Craig Kelly, and you don't control us either. So I wanted to start off by saying congratulations to Craig Kelly, and please go onto his Facebook and please go and show him some support. So yeah, I just wanted to get that sorted before we get into anything else. All right, so getting to the news. All right, so yeah, this is in addition to Craig Kelly, he's going to be sitting on the crossbench from now on, from resigning from the Liberal Party, which is great. You know, we need a strong crossbench. Policy is either approved or thrown out based on the crossbench. Hey, as proven with the extension to the state of emergency, never forget those crossbenchers that betrayed us. It was Andy Medic, Samantha Ratnam, and what's her face? You know who I'm talking about. Fiona Patten, that's right. And I think we need to visit Fiona Patten's office. What do you guys think? Would you be down for that? I think you would be. All right, so I'm just going to read to you a little bit from the article here. It says, Renegade MP Craig Kelly, and in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with being a renegade, has remained tight-lipped on whether he would join the New South Wales Parliament under One Nation if he lost his federal seat next election. Tight-lipped. Well, he hasn't said he would be. Says, quote, I want to make sure that the constituents in my electorate have good reason to vote me back in, Mr. Kelly said. See, that's great. You know, going back to his electorate, the people that got him in, and these are the people that he's talking about right now. That's the right way. That's the right approach. That's the right thing to do. Says here, quote, I know it's going to be tough, but I'm going to give it the best shot I've got. Mr. Kelly, who represents Sydney's southern suburbs, ruled out joining the Nationals on Wednesday following his shock move to the crossbench. Yeah, I mean, the Nationals, why would he join the Nationals? We saw Michael McCormack come out making disparaging remarks, punching down and insulting the people at the tennis that booed that executive when she mentioned the vaccine, when she praised the Victorian government. Now, Michael McCormack is not cut from the same cloth as Craig Kelly. So Craig Kelly made the right decision by ruling out joining the Nationals. Craig Kelly is too good for these people. That's right. It says here, I have some differences with the government's policies. So going to the Nationals, I would still be in the same boat I was in. Exactly. At the moment, I'm going to sit as a Liberal independent, if there is such a thing. Well, what he's saying there is that he's going to sit as an independent and stay true to his classic Liberal ideals, which I think is fair and reasonable. Says here, quote, one thing that I certainly would not support is this idea that Australia should go to net zero by 2050. He's talking about carbon emissions. When China says they're going to do it by 2060, and we have no reason to believe China. China is building coal power fire stations like never before, like it's a competition. Who can build the most coal-fired power stations? China thinks it's a competition. Adding it would be giving the Communist Party a competitive edge. You're damn right it'd be giving them a competitive edge. In what crazy backwoods world would we want to radically increase the cost of our energy whilst allowing China to radically decrease the cost of theirs, as Craig Kelly correctly points out, giving the CCP a competitive advantage. Nationals leader Michael McCormack on Wednesday confirmed Mr. Kelly would be sitting on the crossbench. Pauline Hanson's office on Tuesday said it had not had any formal meetings with Mr. Kelly. Now this is what Plibber, what's her name? Remember Tanya Plibersek? Remember that hallway confrontation with Craig Kelly when Craig Kelly came armed with facts and studies, and all Tanya had was, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're spreading disinformation. You know, Plibersek is also part of the reason which prompted the formation of the We Are Coming movement. Clearly, we can identify in Plibersek nothing more than a career-orientated, typical politician that will do anything to toe the party line and will do anything to advance her career, even if that involves betraying the interest of the Australian public. So there you go. There's that. So this is a quote here from Greg Hunt from an interview. He said, quote, "We're engaged in the world's largest ever vaccination rollout, at the same time effectively clinical trial. We will learn more. We're already learning more." All right, so this is coming from the man that is trying to persuade you to trust him, that's trying to convince you that you have absolutely nothing worried about. Just don't ask any questions. Stick this in your arm. Yet he also refers to this rollout as a, quote, clinical trial, meaning they're still collecting information. That's why the vaccine has only received a provisional approval from the Therapeutic Goods Administration. It's provisional, which means it's subject to events, adverse events, such as injuries and death, etc. And Greg Hunt admits it right here, yet looks you in the eye and says, hey, this is safe, this is great, this is going to make everything perfect. This man is a massive, massive part of the problem. You know, he rubbed shoulders with Andrew Forrest to bring in 10 million PCR tests into Australia via BGI Group, a Chinese Communist Party-backed corporation that has undeniable ties to the most heinous crimes against humanity. This man absolutely brown-nosed, not a very nice term, but I don't know what else to use, a high-ranking CCP member in front of the Australian public alongside Andrew Forrest. We're talking about the Victorian Tasmanian Consul General Long Zhu, who routinely makes disparaging remarks about Australia. This guy Long Zhu, he seizes every opportunity to put down and insult the spirit of our country. And Greg Hunt was completely gushing over this guy in the press conference prior to the importation of the PCR tests. He was saying, Long Zhu, you're so great. We appreciate you. Anyway, go and check it out. It's on my BitChute account at Morgan C. Jonas. You can see the full press conference. It was absolutely disgusting. I thought to myself, who the hell is this guy? And why is he essentially sucking up to the Chinese Communist Party? Anyway, moving on here. Okay, 2 Brisbane aged care residents given overdose of COVID Pfizer vaccine. All right, perfect. So in addition to the coercion that we're seeing in relation to this vaccine, it seems that those administering it don't even know how much to give. So what did Greg Hunt have to say? I'll play this clip for you.
There has been one case, following all the safeguards we have in place, of what has been defined as an adverse administration. Basically, a doctor gave an incorrect dose to 2 patients yesterday. I think it's very important that we're up front. The safeguards that were put in place immediately kicked into action. A nurse on the scene identified the fact that a higher than the prescribed amount of the dose was given to 2 patients, an 88-year-old male and 94-year-old female, in a Queensland aged care facility.
Don't fail me now, National Broadband Network. You know, you don't even really need to hear what he's saying, because I can tell you that everything is just absolute rubbish that comes out of this man's mouth. He's a career politician. He's the health minister. He uses terminology that deceives people into believing that he actually has half a clue in relation to what he's talking about, but actually he doesn't. This man is simply focused on advancing his career whilst advancing the corporate interests of the pharmaceutical companies. He's an absolute fraudster. Greg Hunt, this man is on the radar. I'm telling Greg Hunt right now, you may as well go to your office, clean out your desk, because your job will be replaced, and we the people will do everything in our power to make sure that happens. Who here agrees? Who here is with me? All right, so just moving down here, this is what happened. 2 elderly Queensland residents are being monitored after receiving an overdose of the Pfizer COVID vaccine in an aged care facility in Brisbane. The 88-year-old man and 94-year-old woman are believed to have been given up to 4 times the correct amount of the vaccine on Tuesday at the Holy Spirit Nursing Home. The doctor responsible for administering the vaccine has been stood down. A doctor gave an incorrect dose to 2 patients yesterday, Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt confirmed on Thursday. Look, there he is right there. Greg Hunt, you have violated your duty of care to the Australian people, and the Australian people see you for what you are. Anyway, moving on. Moving on here to the United States, coming from the Epoch Times, Trump appeals suspension to rejoin Facebook and Instagram. The former president submitted a statement to appeal to an oversight board funded by Facebook in a bid to rejoin the platform. The decision is expected to take around 2.5 months. So, you know, once again, this just reminds us that social media is not secure. Anyone can be taken off social media at any time. So that's why it's really important that you, if you haven't already, head over to reignitedemocracyaustralia.com.au. Make sure that you subscribe, so that way we can stay in touch with everything that we're doing. And also head over to mcjreport.com, and right there on the home screen, you'll see a little subscribe form. I'm like, hey, if they can do it to the President of the United States, they can do it to us. All right, now here's something pretty interesting right here. Wedding celebrations turn ugly as guests attack patrolling police. All right, so we don't really know what happened leading up to this, but what we do know is that supposedly the police were responding to a, quote, breach of the chief health officer's directions. But it didn't really work out too well for the police. They were not able to kettle. They were not able to use their pepper spray. So I'm going to play you the clip right here.
Hey, lock him off! Lock him off! Lock him off! Here! 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 Here!
So there you see, not everyone is happy with having their rights infringed on. As you can see, it says here, wedding celebrations in Melbourne's north have turned ugly after guests attacked police in the streets. A patrol car was forced into a hasty retreat on Sunday after officers were surrounded and outnumbered by angry guests. It's interesting, isn't it? Victoria Police, once there's a little bit of pushback, they just run, they flee the scene. I guess they prefer to have hundreds of police outnumbering protesters and civilians. When they're in their packs of hundreds, they're very tough. They love to pull out their pepper spray. They love to beat people into the ground. But as you can see, without their hundreds of sidekicks, they run and they're scared. Victoria Police, I'm telling you right now, you're on the wrong side of history. What is Victoria Police going to do when there's 1 million of us marching in the streets? I guarantee it will happen. I'll tell you what they'll do. Absolutely nothing. I have faith that day will happen. What do you think? Put that in the comments. So it was all supposedly in regards to some sort of breach of the chief health officer's directions. And the article concludes with police are yet to charge anyone. Okay, fair enough. All right. Moving on here. Who here is familiar with the social media platform called Gab? I actually quite like Gab. It has a great interface. It's somewhat similar to Facebook. You can follow me on Gab, by the way. I do have an account that's at Morgan C. Jonas. So you can jump on Gab, follow me there. Now, there's been some interesting remarks made by the Gab CEO, and this is actually something that is very relevant today and something that we should all pay attention to. You know, we can't be sure of anything. Our social media future, our banking future. It says here, quote, cancel them before they cancel us. Gab CEO says banks have banned platform due to media smears. I'm going to read to you a little bit from the article here. 3 banks have refused to do business with Gab, a Twitter competitor outspoken about free speech. Again, Gab / Morgan C. Jonas. In recent weeks, the company's chief executive revealed Andrew Torba blamed the development on mainstream media hit pieces. All right, it goes on to say, the third bank to sever its relationship with the company in 3 weeks told Torba on Monday that they were doing so because of, quote, all the bad things the press had written about Gab. So that's what it takes. That's what it takes these days for a bank to refuse financial services to a business. They did it because of, quote, all the bad things the press had written. Oh, we heard some bad things, so we're not going to provide you financial services. We're going to punish you financially. This is crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Are we living in a democracy or are we living in communist China? And this was said in an interview published by the conservative outlet, the National File. Goes on to say, this is from the CEO again, we sell hats, shirts, software licensed to our Gab Pro service. We have a community that respects law and order, yet we have banks and other services banning us left and right. Gab was founded in 2016, but has been attacked almost from the start over Torba's refusal to police hate speech. And of course, the very notion of hate speech is entirely subjective. What is hate speech? If you go and ask 100 people, what is hate speech? Everyone will give you a different answer, and that's because it's completely subjective. Maybe some people would say that when I say that Greg Hunt needs to clear out his desk and go home because his days in office are limited because we the people are going to vote him out and put someone better in, maybe some people would consider that hate speech. So it's a very slippery slope. And free speech needs to be protected because free speech and speaking out is really the only weapon we have at our disposal to push back against unfair government policies. Okay, this is in relation to Gab. I'm going to keep reading. Its popularity surged last month after Silicon Valley banned President Donald Trump and the shutdown of Parler, another free speech network popular among purged conservatives. Right now on Gab, it says there's 272 million site visits. So what do you think? Do you use Gab? If so, do you like it? I find the interface to be great. The annoying thing is that you can't download an app because it's been banned from the app stores. But I think it's a very good app with a good interface. Okay, moving on. Now, this is something pretty interesting right here. Now, this is from Chinese New Year this year. This is, I'm just going to read to you what has been going on. Now, if this happened anywhere in the world, there would be absolute outrage. Yet, for whatever reason, China seems to be getting a free pass on this discriminatory behavior. It says racism Rome. Chinese New Year 2021. China sparks racism storm for using dancers in blackface during gala performance. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this for you for a couple of minutes.
老师，我妈来了，你要帮帮我。
我怎么帮你啊？
一会儿啊，我说什么你就说什么。
没问题。
看人，
哎，您好。
这位是，这是我们培训中心的老师。
阿姨好。呀，太热情了。
老师送给你水果。
谢谢阿姨。
老师啊，卡瑞在家里天天夸奖你，说你帅呆了。
过奖。
哦，今天一见，果然很呆。老师，我来是要给卡瑞请个假，我要带他去相亲。
阿姨呀，相亲的日子能不能改一天呢？
相亲的日子不能改。
为什么呀？
哦，今天是个大喜的日子，我查过黄历了。
Yeah, so it goes on like that. So, as you can see, you've got actors on stage, Chinese actors using blackface. This type of ceremony is common, I suppose, during Chinese New Year over in China, completely endorsed by the Chinese Communist Party. There's no sort of, stage performances that are not endorsed by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, as you can see, clearly discriminatory in nature and offensive to many, many people. And that's why, of course, the use of blackface has been condemned, and that's why it doesn't happen anymore, because, of course, it's very, very hurtful to many people. Now, I wonder what Daniel Andrews, Mr. Social Justice, what would he say about this? Will Daniel Andrews condemn this? It's not like this was 20 years ago. This happened a few weeks ago. Now, unfortunately, it's a very ugly pattern in China, which is extreme forms of racism, particularly against African people. We know that when the coronavirus first came to our attention in China, well, they tried to blame it on many people apart from themselves. We saw the US military was blamed. We saw Italy was blamed. Recently, we saw that the Chinese Communist Party blamed coronavirus on imported Australian beef, like supposedly it came from Australia. But they also launched a huge campaign in China blaming the origins of COVID or coronavirus on the African people living, specifically African people living in Guangzhou. It was a really horrible campaign, and we saw extreme systemic racist restrictions imposed on certain citizens, like not allowing African people into businesses, hotels, etc. And the world completely turned a blind eye. The world said, well, that's China. China does what they do. They have blackface on stage. They're funny like that. Daniel Andrews, Mr. Social Justice, who incited the Black Lives Matter rally, as far as I'm concerned, last year on his social media, who, turned a blind eye to Invasion Day, Mr. Social Justice, is completely silent on these overt acts of discrimination taking place in China. Why is that, ladies and gentlemen? Why is that? Well, the question to that is truly very, very simple, which is Daniel Andrews would never say anything or do anything to anger his superiors at the Chinese Communist Party. Never forget that. Daniel Andrews works for them. He does not work for you. And I think that we need to go after the seat of Mulgrave. Who here thinks that is something that absolutely must be done? All right, so yeah, moving on here to Myanmar. Maybe some of you have been following the protests. We see, of course, millions of people taking to the streets in Myanmar, protesting against the military administration of the country that seized power after their last election, after the election where their leader was democratically elected by a landslide. And what we see over in Myanmar is a huge amount of people rising up and basically making the assertion that China could very much be involved in one way, shape or form of the military dictatorship. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit from this article right here, and we can have a talk about that. And once again, this is in our immediate region. This affects Australia. Myanmar is a very strategic piece of land for China because it connects China to the Indian Ocean. And China, of course, seeks to become the world's dominant maritime power, the world's dominant trading power, military power, I dare say as well. So I'm going to read to you here. Beijing mouthpiece Global Times warned Western countries and other US allies in the region, including Washington's Quad partners, India, Australia and Japan, Quad partners referring to the four strongest democracies in the world. Australia, hanging on by a thread. Is Australia even a democracy anymore? That's probably a conversation for another day. It says here, not to treat Myanmar as their, quote, pawn in a geopolitical rivalry. And I'm laughing when I read the word pawn because China literally uses all of its trading partners as pawns. A geopolitical rivalry, saying it would not do the country good, but risk dragging it further down into the abyss. Okay, like China cares about the overall good of other nations, right? They care about the good here in Australia when they decimated our wine industry, our dairy industry, our barley industry. They cared about the good of the nation when they held our coal ships up in their waters for months on end. They cared about the good of Ecuador when they sold Ecuador a multi-billion-dollar dam and awarded the jobs to their workers instead of Ecuadorian workers. And it was good for Ecuador when the dam started showing cracks in the dam floor and could not be used at full capacity, and China wouldn't reimburse the country and instead seize their oil as payments. I mean, the China-Australia relationship is the ultimate example of the worst type of abusive relationship there is. Do as I say, not as I do. China is forever accusing other nations of committing the crimes and injustices that China itself is guilty of. So, whenever you see this type of language, you need to understand that it's total projection. It's total projection. I know that everyone knows someone like that. We all have somebody in our lives that accuses other people of bad things, yet they're accusing people of the bad things they themselves do. This is China on a massive level, and it just happens to be the biggest consumer market in the world. All right, it says here, the paper said that, quote, some hostile forces, both in and outside of Myanmar, are deliberately making use of this opportunity to spread rumors against China and stoke hatred to distance Myanmar from China, Myanmar's largest trading partner in the region. All right, so why might they be saying that? Why might these protesters here be protesting against China? Well, there's a few reasons. China has failed to condemn the military coup in the United Nations. China has encouraged other nations to not intervene in the military coup in Myanmar, which has become very, very violent. It's also important to point out that the democratically elected leader, who is now in jail, who was put in jail by the military accused of election fraud, signed the Belt and Road Initiative with China, and I believe it was 33 separate deals. So China's coming from the perspective, they're saying, hey, why would we want the military in power in Myanmar? Because the last leader was, she was very good to us. She signed the Belt and Road Initiative. Well, we can theorize on a number of different levels. China, of course, likes to export its ideology out into the world. China exploits the openness of democracy in order to spread its commercial operations, such as the Belt and Road Initiative. China was able to exploit the weakness in the Australian democracy via Daniel Andrews in order to bypass the federal government to bring the Belt and Road Initiative to Australia and to begin setting the framework for Chinese corporations to set up shop and to play by their own rules, not by Australian rules. So, in my opinion, it's completely conceivable that China was happy to exploit the openness of whatever democracy was in Myanmar in order to bring the Belt and Road Initiative in, and is now perhaps more favorable of a more authoritarian regime. The Chinese Communist Party gets along really well with many authoritarian regimes in Africa, for example, because they're generally more corrupt, they're generally easier to pay off, and they're generally more willing to throw their own people under the bus for some type of dirty deal under the table. So perhaps the game has changed for China, but I suppose only time will tell. And things are looking really bad in Myanmar, and we hope that the people can get some of their own dignity back at some stage, as we hope that we can get our dignity back as well. So I'll post this up. So this is just an article here. This is the Prime Minister or President of Myanmar, who's been put in jail after the election accused of voter fraud, hanging out with Xi Jinping. This is one gangster you just don't want to get involved in. Seems like a good idea when you first meet the guy. He says, hey, we're going to bring our corporations. We're going to bring lots of money. We're going to build bridges, roads. It's going to be great. It all sounds very nice. And then 5 years down the track, you realize that China owns you. Remember, in life, the borrower is always the slave, right? Is always the slave of the lender. And here in Australia, we have no good excuse for seeking out these lines of Chinese finance. You need to remember, we live in the most resource-rich country on the face of the earth. There's no country that rivals us. Look at our coastline. Look at our exclusive economic zone and the fisheries that we have access to. Our coal reserves, our uranium, our iron ore, even oil, rare earth elements, tin, copper. We have everything in Australia, and instead of over the past few decades utilizing our natural resources, including also, I left out water, right? Some people say Australia is so dry, but if you look at far north Queensland, it's one of the wettest places on the face of the earth. Yet we do nothing with the water, we waste it. We don't invest in proper water infrastructure, otherwise we could be cultivating otherwise barren lands. But instead, what have our politicians done over the past 4 decades? They destroyed our manufacturing industry, and they increased mining. They dug holes in the ground. They sent resources to China, and that's how the Australian economy was able to grow. And in doing so, we created the biggest global menace of our lifetime. We created the expansionist, imperialist, Chinese communist regime that is dominating nations all over the earth, and they are dominating nations with Australian steel. Never forget that. When China builds those man-made military islands in the South China Sea, they are doing so with Australian steel. and they're powering these military bases with Australian coal. Okay, we have truly contributed to this huge global problem right now, and it's bothered me for years, and I'm so happy that the We Are Coming movement is here, because this is our last chance. If we do not seriously shuffle the seats of Parliament, if we do not take these traitors out and put good people like us in, then you can kiss our country goodbye. Moving on. Yeah, so once again, China blocked condemnation in Myanmar. So China refusing to condemn the violence of the military in Myanmar, which makes sense because they assault their own people. Let's see, what do we have here? So this is just more in regards to the Myanmar protests. Yeah, another thing that's interesting to point out is the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar that have been mistreated for a very long time. China can relate to that because they, of course, also mistreat their Muslim minority, the Uyghurs, in the western province of East Turkestan. So the trend that we see is that just in general, the Chinese Communist Party does prefer to deal with brutal dictatorships because they have more in common. You know, it's like two people that like cars are going to get along, two people that enjoy stripping entire populations of their human rights, they're going to get along, which is why Daniel Andrews gets along so well with those thugs and criminals from the Chinese Communist Party. Is Daniel Andrews Australian? By the way, I've got a question. I mean, he sounds Australian, he was born here, but there's really nothing Australian about the guy. The guy encapsulates nothing of our national spirit. How embarrassing. How did we let this happen? You know how this happened? We were watching sport, we were watching Married at First Sight, we had our backs turned, and we allowed radicals who are not intellectuals, they're ideologically motivated, but they're not very smart people. We allowed them to occupy the seats within the walls of our parliaments. And they thought they could get away with this situation, this COVID situation with the lockdowns and the mandatory vaccines, but instead they triggered a mass awakening. Is that fair enough? Do you agree with me? Do we have what it takes to change this situation around? I say we bloody well do. I say that we still have fighting spirit, and that fighting spirit is coming back. Moving on. So once again, Myanmar, more protests against China. I've got the map here. So here's Myanmar right there. There's Thailand, Cambodia, there's Laos, and there's China. So via the Belt and Road Initiative, China essentially wants to build railroads and trading routes all the way from China through Myanmar out to the Indian Ocean, and to also control ports around the coast of Myanmar right there, because as mentioned, China's ambition is to become the world's dominant maritime power, but along with that comes increased military patrols all around their outposts, military bases, and ultimately what you can clearly see is an India strategy. India and China being peer competitors, you could say. We see skirmishes on the northern Indian border between India and Chinese troops. We have, of course, Myanmar right here to the right of India, heavily in debt to China, signed up to the Belt and Road Initiative, ports on the horizon. We've got Bangladesh to the left, also beholden to China. China is building railroads, highways in Bangladesh, trading routes. Bangladesh is completely beholden to China. And I've been there, I've seen it. I've been there. I used to go there for work. The place is owned by China. It's crazy to see it. Sri Lanka down here. Sri Lanka, again, owned by China. The port of Hambantota, the infamous case of Hambantota, the Belt and Road Initiative. China built a massive port in Sri Lanka, a port that by far superseded the economic output of the small nation, and of course ended up resulting in the transferring of the title of the port to China. Now, the narrative at the time was from Sri Lanka was, well, we're going to build this big port that's bigger than what our economy can cater for, because by building a big port, our economy will increase. Okay, so the logic there is completely off. It's completely off. I should say the growth in economy should come before the infrastructure. You don't build the infrastructure and think the economy is going to catch up. You build the economy and then you build the infrastructure to cater to the growth in economy. So what I suspect in Sri Lanka is that there was never any real plan to grow the economy to catch up with the construction of this massive port. Rather, there was most likely money being handed under the table, lots of corruption involved, so that in the end, China could take control of a very strategic position right next to who they consider their enemy, which is India. And by the way, I'm happy that we're doing more naval patrols with India. India is a great country. India has a great consumer market. But most importantly, India is not trying to export their ideology around the world. India is not expansionist like China. India is not trying to culturally and commercially dominate small nations in order to gain these advantages in the United Nations and so forth. So I truly believe that a huge part of the future is deepening relations with India. What do you think? Maybe you have your own thoughts. Put that in the comments. Yeah, so again, China is occupying Pakistan. China has India surrounded. But guess what? China has Australia surrounded. China's looking to build a super city in Papua New Guinea. All around the Indo-Pacific, China has outposts, whether it's Fiji, Vanuatu, Tonga, Indonesia, Jakarta right there, Philippines, Vietnam, New Zealand. By the way, the New Zealand Prime Minister signed the Belt and Road Initiative. And we're going to really have to reconsider our foreign policy with New Zealand because China has been able to, is basically setting New Zealand up as a proxy for entering Australia. China doesn't care that much about New Zealand. New Zealand's not that valuable for China. China wants Australia. They want our resources. They want our land. Now, we've got all types of ongoing trade arrangements with New Zealand. We've got migration arrangements. We've got passage of travel. So I think that we really need to watch out for New Zealand should New Zealand completely fall under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. And this sounds kind of weird, but we need to watch out for Tasmania as well. Now, Tasmania, of course, part of Australia. We need to defend Tasmania. But so much of Tasmania is now owned by China in terms of their agricultural industry and their farms. We're in such a mess right now, and this mess can only start to clean up once we fix our domestic policy in regards to the COVID craziness. And our foreign policy is a complete mess as well. And once again, this can only be done politically. So I hope that you watching at home are ready to roll your hands up and get involved. Are you? Put that in the comments because this is going to require a massive group effort. And what I believe is that the Australian people are now paying attention and sitting up and saying, now's the time that I have to fight for my country. Is that how you're feeling? That's how I'm feeling. I'm ready to go, and I hope you are too. Oh yeah, so this was just in regards to the story we spoke about before. Discrimination in China. Yeah, it was really bad actually. It was really disgusting, and I can't believe China didn't receive condemnation for the discriminatory practices that they enforced against their African population. So this is a great website right here. This was recommended to me by Serene from Advocate Me, peopleforsafevaccines.org. It's basically a knowledge base. Lots of fact-based information. I highly recommend you check it out. Go and have a read of it. And if you are having some issues, of course, you can, with the COVID restrictions or perhaps coerced or mandated vaccines, you can go ahead and get in touch with Advocate Me with Serene. I like them a lot. I was speaking to Serene. I think she's a great person. She's doing a great job. And, it gives me faith that we can win this thing. And, of course, Reignite Democracy Australia. That's right. So I'm now broadcasting across all the platforms. The We Are Coming movement. It's been a long time coming, but it's finally here. So you can jump onto reignitedemocracyaustralia.com.au. Right here on the homepage, We Are Coming. Click on Learn More, and there'll be a form that you can fill out so that you can get involved. You can roll your sleeves up, get your hands dirty, and be part of the solution. And this is me right here, MCJReport.com. So I know I'm rattling off a lot of websites pretty quickly. MCJReport.com. Go ahead and sign up to my free newsletter. I've changed the website around a little bit. I have ceased the news aggregation for now because I need to upgrade the website. I need new functionality to make it easier for me to post articles, to share articles and so forth. So right now I'm just using it to upload all the MCJ reports. but there's also emails going out. So I will be sending emails that are in relation to current affairs, particularly covering the global scandal, local affairs, what's going on within the We Are Coming movement, special reports. Now, a lot of you said to me, you want me to make a violated by AstraZeneca report. So I'm going to do that for you. That's right. If you haven't seen Violated by Pfizer, you can go to mcjreport.com and you can watch it right there on my website. There's also a function where you can stream it to your television. That's right. So there will be a little button. So if you have the functionality on your television, you can stream it, sit back and learn about this horrible organization that is responsible for the destruction of so many lives. All right. Let's see here. And I have disappeared. And there I am. All right, so we're just about ready to wrap the show up, guys. Once again, you can jump onto Telegram because who knows how long Facebook will be around for. So on Telegram, it's Reignite Democracy Australia. Search that up. And for me, MCJ Report, it's Morgan C. Jonas on Telegram. Now, I'm just going to have a look at the chat here. I can see a bunch of you tuned in. It's so great to have you guys here, honestly. Kayleen, Anna, Erica, Brad, G, Greg, Andrea, Anna. Wow, so many of you are tuned in right now. It's truly a pleasure to have you. There's Paul, Margaret, Andrew, Steve, Lucy, Jesse. It's great. I'm great to see. I'm so happy to see you guys interacting. And I tell you what, I'm pumped up for Saturday. Who here is pumped up? I've had this guy on my radar for a long time. Ever since I saw the press conference, let's see, I'll go back here. Ever since I saw the press conference between Greg Hunt, Andrew Forrest, and Long Zhu, I said to myself, this man is a snake. This man is bypassing his duty of care to the Australian public, and he needs to be called out for it. You know, BGI Group, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Greg Hunt looks in your eye and says, take my word for it. I've got your best interest at heart. Don't question me. I'm the health minister. The people are not buying it anymore. Anyways, guys, I'm going to stop the show right now. As you saw on the last show, I thought I stopped it, but I left it running for a few seconds, and that was a bit funny, wasn't it? That was a bit embarrassing. Maybe some of you saw it at the end there, but that probably won't be happening again. So sorry to disappoint you. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, lots of love. I'll see you on Friday, and guess what? I'll see you on Saturday. That's right. We are coming. Good night.